focus. There's a lot of things that we look at on the charts, a lot of things that are promoted by educators and authors, gurus and mentors. But what specifically should you be focusing on? In the last video, I gave you an outline to work with in terms of filling in your complete Monday through Sunday week in 15-minute increments. So every block on this grid here will represent one 15-minute time frame. Hopefully you've done that and you've seen just about how much wasted time you put into other things that aren't most likely going to do anything for you in terms of empowerment or enrichment or just to improve. So we're going to focus primarily on taking this work week and focusing in on specific times of the day and what is it you're supposed to be focusing on and studying. As a Forex trader, I try to promote the idea of thinking of the 24-hour day in these 4 incremental cycles. There's the London session, which comprises of the European and London Open, which is what I refer to as the ICT London Open Kill Zone. It typically includes Frankfurt and all the way into the London lunch. New York Open, or as I refer to it as the New York Open Kill Zone, the London Close, Asia, or as I refer to it as the Asian Kill Zone. No matter what you do per profession or a job or whatever it is, you're going to have to find something in these 4 specific times of the day to focus on. Now, the problem I've seen over the years as an educator is my students typically want to go in and do everything. They want to be the master of the London session. They want to be the master of the New York session. They want to trade the London close, and they want to trade Asia as well, because more is better, right? Well, it's not. In fact, as a speculator, the less you can do, the better, because less is more when it comes to speculation. The common misnomer is if you look at the opportunities throughout the day, even if you understand the time windows that's created by liquidity, as shown here, you can quickly talk yourself into doing a lot more than what's necessary, and you become an action hound. I've fallen victim to this when I first started trading Forex. It was a rather busy time for foreign exchange, so the ranges were pretty large. So it made me feel like I could do a lot more, and I abandoned what I knew in the futures market, which is basically the same thing that goes on in the Forex. Well, back then we had open outcry only, and then when everything went to electronic trading, then everything was pretty much what we see in terms of my ICT Forex content. But a lot of the rules that I used with trading currency futures were applicable to Forex. The overnight trading, I wasn't as refined as I am today because I focused primarily on the opening of the open outcry pits for the currency markets as the futures exchange is opened. So you're going to have to get to the decision point for yourself as to which one you're going to focus on. Now, you may be a student and you have not found your way into your career yet, okay, or your temporary career. If you're going to be a full-time trader eventually. And whatever you're doing now as a student, that may transition into something else based on your employment after you get out of school, okay? Or if there's a break in your schooling, maybe like a summer break or whatever, your opportunities will probably be more open to other times of the day. I would recommend you try to pick just one, okay? And the one that you should pick is the one that's the most comfortable for your family life and your job. You do not want to make things harder for yourself by picking a time of day to trade or study that's going to be conflicting with your personal and work life. There's a balance that has to be made, and I can tell you for the last 20 plus years, it's been a struggle sometimes for me to balance 5 kids, a wife, 2 dogs, my own personal wants and desires to do what I want to do with my friends and my personal time. So you have to use that grid to make a schedule for your family time. If you have a job, obviously you have to schedule that. But outside of that, you want to put your family in first. The things you want to do with your family, the things that they've asked of you, you have to make time available for them. If you do not do that, trading is going to be very, very stressful because, number one, your children, your spouse, they're going to interrupt you when you're looking at the charts or trying to trade if they are home at the time. Now, if you're looking to trade the London Open or the New York session and it's during the school session time, then probably your spouse may be working, or she can make herself or he can make himself scarce while you do what you got to do and the kids are at school. London close, the same type of thing. At least I'm referring to those in the North American states, at least as it goes with my time zone, which is relatively the same as New York time. But you have to balance that, and there's so many variables there. It's up to you to decide which one's going to be applicable for you. Now, I know that primarily, especially those that have studied my free tutorials, they want to be in the London session because it offers the most volatility and it gives you the biggest portion of the range, of the daily range. It's not necessary to do that. Okay, so I try to teach like I taught when I first stepped out as a Forex mentor, 2010, primarily just dealing with Forex for willing students, that you only need 25 pips a week. That's it. Now, what I'm going to show you here tonight is how you can get that one setup, okay, based on a time of day, and you can get those 25 pips for a week. It may take you 2 trades or 3 trades if there's an opportunity where you don't get your full pull as far as your target and you have to do another trade. Maybe it's a losing trade and you have to take another one to recoup that and get your balance that you're aiming for. But it's far easier to make a low-end objective between Monday and Friday than it is to try to get 150 pips or 200 pips. You don't have enough range in the weekly range to be able to do that consistently if you don't know what you're doing and you're rushing and you're not really focusing. So what I teach is folks should be focusing on a very low-end objective, something that can be obtained rather easy. Now, I say that with quotations, okay? I'm not saying that a new trader is going to step into the market and easily find 25 pips. That's not going to happen. There's some things you have to learn about yourself and you have to learn about the marketplace. But they're very generic things like we're going to talk about tonight. And you've seen many times what I'm going to refer to, but I want you to really think about it in terms of an exercise, because as I mentioned in the first video in this series, and there's only 2 parts, this is the last part on this specific series, I mentioned that as a new trader, you shouldn't be doing anything more than 30 minutes a day in terms of your study. So that means whatever video you're watching, it needs to be 30 minutes of that only and stop. Because it gives you an opportunity to reflect on what you're learning and it builds anticipation about your next study session. You don't want to be burnt out. You don't want to be boring yourself, because I have a tendency to go on and on and on and drone on about things that are rather dry. But they're important, but if you don't retain them, and that's why it's important to go back over my videos, because the number one repeating tenet is that folks get more information out of the videos by watching them multiple times because they're rather boring, okay? Because the content is very dry. What makes it exciting, and that's what I'm kind of going to ring in tonight with this volume, is what you're supposed to be doing in those study moments, okay? Your 15-minute block of study time or 30-minute block of study time. You have to find that time within those 24 hours. That's up to you. I can't do that for you. because your life and your job and whatever that goes on in your personal life are going to dictate where that's available. But whatever you do, try to be consistent about it. That way you have something to look forward to throughout the day until you get to that study moment, and then you can focus, and then you limit your time. Set an alarm for your start time to do it, and set a ending time, so that way you are forcing yourself to be rigid and disciplined. You only spend this much time in your study and then leave it alone. Your spouse and your children, not so much your children because they're not going to really appreciate what you're doing and the balancing act that's required with all this, but your spouse will certainly respect that, because I can tell you I have had a lot of arguments over the years with my spouse about how much time I devote to this and to teaching and making videos and tutorials and notes and all those types of things and answering email. It's been a lot of work for me as an educator. While that's not the same workload that you'll have as a developing trader, sometimes it will feel like that, because if you have not scheduled your family time outside of your work time, made time for them, that way when you are alone with your charts, they don't feel cheated. Because even if they aren't saying anything, gentlemen, you'll know what I'm talking about mostly here. The look that your spouse will give you when they look in over your shoulder and you look over at them, and here you are sitting in front of the charts again, it's like you're with a mistress. Okay, and you know what I'm talking about, that look they give you. You're doing that again, or you're on there for far too long time. When are you going to spend time with us, or with me in particular? So it's not something that is unique to me. Okay, anyone that spends any time with the market, it tends to be a very cruel lover, and by that I mean it demands your time, it demands your attention and your focus. So while it's necessary to give that to it, okay, and I'm giving personification to the marketplace a lot in my references to it, but I want you to feel like it's someone that could get you in trouble. Okay, it's the friend that if you allow that friendship to go too far, it becomes a problem. Okay, you've overstepped your boundaries. So you have to keep things in balance. You got to keep things in check and keep things in a list of priority. Obviously, I'll let you guys argue which one's more important, whether it be the job or your family. I would venture to say, if you don't have funds, your job's pretty much first, because you need funds to take care of your family, and then family is second, and then your free time is balanced with whatever you do outside of those two major consumers of your time, and again, apart from sleep. So you want to have your focus on what you're doing with your family, be very specific with your time, budget your time with them, and then let your spouse and your children know when you're going to be involved with the market. That way they don't disturb you, they respect your time doing it, and if you keep it in a real modest amount of time each day, it won't be hard for them to give you that opportunity to do that. Now, this way, while you're thinking that 15 or 30-minute block of study time is far too little time, it's not going to be, because you're going to be much more efficiently using that time, because you're not going to be stressing about being interrupted or feeling guilty about why you're doing it. What is your family and your spouse, what are they thinking about what you're doing? Because the last thing you want to do is having that over top of your shoulder, if you will, whispering in your ear, when you're done with this, your spouse is going to have an attitude, or your children are going to have their feelings hurt because you didn't spend time with them doing whatever it is you were supposed to be doing in their eyes. So this way, you've budgeted your time in that 24-hour block of time, which makes a day. This way, you have no guilt, you have no distractions, and your time is completely and utterly devoted to the marketplace. So that way, the things that you're doing, while they're not a lot of time itself, with 30 minutes of time of study, it is quality time. So you don't want to spend a great deal of time, but the time that you do spend, you want to spend it without distraction. So if you're going to be focusing on Asia, okay, I want to build an idea of realism and kind of give you expectation, if you will, of what you should be doing each day. Okay, so when you're studying, And again, I'm speaking from the perspective that you've already went through my free tutorials, so therefore you're not gorging yourself with videos every day or hours upon hours. What should you be focusing on as a student that has already gone through the free content? What you should be focusing on for Asia each day, this is what you want to be basically doing. Okay, it's an exercise of logging past price action. Now, I learned everything that I teach and I use in the marketplace by doing this very thing here. So do not discount it. Don't think that it's a waste of time, because I'm telling you, you gain so much experience by doing it and by having a record of it and keeping a study journal, keeping each day on 1 or 2 pairs. And if you want to be crazy about it, if you do this, you will be doing a 30-minute block of time each day doing it. But if you want to do the majors, like all the dollar pairs, anything that's coupled with a dollar, it will take you a good 20 to 30 minutes to do it. But if you're going to do like 1 or 2 pairs and really spend some quality time studying it in all sessions, whatever session that you're focusing on, that one particular is the only one you're looking at. Now, if you want to add more for completeness sake, then obviously you can use the other remaining 3 sessions of the day. So if you're looking at London as your specific time of day that you want to be studying, you can add the New York, London close, and the Asian session as bonuses, if you will. And I'll kind of give you an example of what that would look like with this whole presentation tonight. But the unique portions of the day, if you're going to be focusing on, as an example here, say Asia, if that's going to be the time of day that you have available for study, then this is what you'll do. Okay, so obviously looking at a chart like this, it doesn't mean too much. It looks rather random, and that's typical. Okay, but over time, if you start applying the ideas that I teach in my free tutorials, the clarity will come, and you can see things that normally aren't observable by the retail trader. As you can see here, by adding the vertical lines delineating the Asian session going into the New York time in New York of midnight, and identifying order blocks and where sell stop liquidity pools are, and aiming for those specific things after the market runs up to a very clear bearish order block. Now, what you're doing is you're teaching yourself to see this in hindsight. You want to have at least 3 months worth of a study journal filled with every single day, Monday through Friday, with at least one specific currency pair. Okay? By doing this, you'll be able to go back and look at these unique examples every single time you want to look at them. It's like having all of that 3-month experience looking at that specific time of day. Now imagine doing that for 12 months. If you do that, and you continuously do it as a developing trader and a well-groomed trader, I do all of my sessions like this with the fiber and cable. It's in my own unique study journal. I keep my own charts doctored up with all these types of things, and it keeps things in my mind when I'm looking at price action. Something will inherently be jogged in my memory when I see a specific element on price action during live trading. If I'm looking at the charts during a specific time of day like New York and London, if I see something that's acting, it may not be apparent on my chart, because a lot of times I'll go back to a naked chart when I'm watching it, because I don't want to go in with any preconceived ideas about what should happen. Okay, if I'm unsure about the marketplace, I want to go back to a clean slate, if you will, and have a blank chart. But many times my mind will be reminding myself of things I've had recently noted in my journal. Okay, and this is what a journal entry would look like for me for Asian session. Okay, so this is what my chart would look like for this particular day. So I'm showing you what my charts look like right now as they go into my journal. Now, there's a lot of other things, obviously, the mentorship would know about that are also added to this, but from a free tutorial standpoint, this is all free tutorial level content. But don't be discouraged thinking, oh, well, he's holding things back and I'm not going to have enough information to do anything. That's not true, because you can do a lot with the free tutorials. But you have to be very, very disciplined, and you have to do a lot of work. And you discover things by trial and error by doing it through the free tutorials. With the mentorship, I kind of like show you what to avoid and do specifically, and look for this and don't do that. Okay, that type of thing. But there's two avenues. You guys can choose to take whatever path you want. I'm talking for the free student in these lessons. Okay, so my Asian session notes for Eurodollar today look like this. Okay, now without the inclusion of all the mentorship stuff, this is sufficient. Okay, you can see that there's been a clear bearish order block. Price broke down, moved back up to it, sold off here. Then we went into consolidation, which is typical for the Asian session. The market runs above a short-term high in here, back into the order block here, and also goes to the extreme end of this last up close candle here. Now these are 15-minute time frames, so you could argue and say, well, these are very, very minor time frames, therefore the candlesticks shouldn't be that important or significant. But they are significant, and they are influential when you apply the time factor. Okay, so time of day is very important. We know that this time of day is typically a consolidation portion of the day. So if you're going to be trading in Asia, it's very, very important. Your objective for pips are going to be drastically reduced. Okay, there's going to be times when the Asian session really tears off and just starts to run, but generally, and this is why you want to do this, you'll see that the normal characteristic for this time of day is it's very quiet. So therefore, you have to have a very low end pip objective if you're going to be trading this or studying it. But price goes up, hits the order block, runs down, and goes below the low here where a sell stop liquidity pool would be resting, and you see that reaching into it right here. Okay, and then look at the nice little reaction after that. Now, it's not a lot of pips, it's not a lot of movement, but it's very, very consistent. If you look at the action Monday through Friday for 3 months, looking at one particular currency pair, you will start to see these repeating characteristics that are very generic, and they're not random, okay, as I have here facetiously placed on that little rectangle. What I'm highlighting there is the actual Asian session kill zone as I define it. So the setup would be seen here. It trades up into the bearish order block and then runs for the sell stop liquidity pool. All right out of the scalping modules that I gave for my YouTube channel. You can find them on my website at theinnercircletrader.com. Just join the forum. It's free. It doesn't cost you to join anything there. And you can keep a running collection of all my YouTube videos there. It's all for your enjoyment and edification. But for those individuals that are not focusing on Asia during your time of study, you may be looking for London. Okay, so when London is defined, as shown here, we will be looking at past data every single day, and you want to note the portions of price action that would be seen for the London Open kill zone. For that, this is what you would see here. Okay, you have an initial high, so we think that the market's going to expand higher. Run that old high out, so there would be buy stops resting above that. And I'm highlighting here the London Open kill zone. And what's missing here, what would make that a specific price point to be a buy? Look very closely, and you'll see an ICT bullish breaker. Okay, we had all these lows over here, very clean level. You know what that is? It's candy land for sell stops. Price trades lower, clears all the stops, then goes above this high, trades back down into during the London Open kill zone. Okay, this would be your buy right in here, aiming for the buy stops as a run on liquidity. So your opportunity would be buying here on the bullish breaker with a run to the buy stops. And that's all you would necessarily look for the London Open kill zone, and your day would be done. But for those individuals that are just studying it, looking for case studies every single day to build up a experience reference over a period of time that is ongoing, your chart would look like this. Okay, this is how I have my chart for today. And obviously it's very informative, insightful when you have it like this, because it builds a lot of understanding about what is being reacted off of in price action. Now again, you want to have these every single trading day. Okay, it's not important to trade now. If you're learning, you do not trade. You don't even put demo trades on. This is how you learn. You do this every single day. You log it Monday through Friday. And then on the weekends, when you have more study time, as I shown in the first video, when you have about an hour or so or a couple hours that you can devote to, then you can spend time going back over the previous week, what price did, how it reacted, and how each individual day dovetailed into the next day. Like how did Monday trade into Tuesday? And how did Tuesday trade into Wednesday? And Wednesday into Thursday? And what relationships Thursday and Monday have? Or Tuesday and Thursday? What relationships were there for that? Or Friday? Was there any kind of a retracement or a high or low formed any specific day? And you want to make notes on that during the weekend. Go back in the old charts, like for instance this one here. I may make references on this chart on Saturday when I go back and go through all my data for the week that I've collected. This is what I'm doing it on. Now I use a 15-minute time frame because it gives me a lot of intraday price action, and it refines my fractals into a really small element of time. Now I don't like to do it on a 5-minute chart because that's too much of a noisy time frame, and obviously 1 minute is just ridiculous, so I'm not interested there. But I do a lot of my notations on a 15-minute time frame. Now if there's times when the element behind the setup is more closely seen, or clearly seen rather, by way of an hourly chart, I'll include an hourly chart perspective, but still nonetheless most of my notations will be on the 15-minute time frame. Okay, now again, looking at it like this doesn't mean much to people that have this fascination with indicators, because you want to have overbought, oversold, you want to have moving averages, MACDs, Bollinger Bands, all kinds of variations of the theme, because it looks smart, looks technical. And again, all those things don't do anything to make price move. Okay, they're distractions. I know what elements in price and time are going to be influential. I know it because I've done this exercise for decades. You will learn the same way if you do this. If you don't do these types of things, you're actually cheating yourself, because you're not teaching yourself how to be a price action trader. You're going to be wasting a lot of your time. And what you want to be doing with your time is focusing on what's happened in the past, because if you study that and you see it over and over and over again, it's like anything. Remember when you were in grade school and you were learning math? At least for me, it was we had to do flashcards. Okay, they would hold up simple arithmetic patterns or problems like what's 2 plus 4. And on the back of the card, it would be an answer 6, and the person would hold the card up, flash it to you, and you give your answer. And if you're right, they'd flash it and say, yep, you're wrong, or right, rather. So this same element of repetition, doing it every single day in your own notations, in your own words, you're creating the chart so that way your subconscious is remembering it, it's recording it. You're building up your sensitivity to it because you keep seeing it over and over and over again in your notations and in your journal. And then at the end of the week, on the weekend, you're referring to it again. 3 months of doing this, what you're actually doing is you're building a responsiveness, a sensitivity to these characteristics that are uniquely specific to these times of the day. That's why it's important. Whatever one you're going to choose, you need to stick to that one, and don't try to do more than that. Okay? For those that have been more formally used to seeing my content and have been using it for a while and have been profitable with it, then obviously you can do more sessions of the day and include that in your journal. But as a developing trader that you're new to my content, or you tried it in the past and it didn't hit with you, and now you're coming back to me, this is the way you want to study it. Okay, put 3 months into doing this, and I'm promising you it will transform your perception about price action, and it will refine you as a better trader. Now, again, you may study the London session and eventually come to the conclusion that it's not a time frame for you. Maybe you thought it was going to be a good session for you, but the next session, the New York session, ends up becoming a more appropriate time of day. Again, to the untrained eye, looks like random price action. It's not giving you any kind of insights here. What you want to do is just go back Monday through Friday, your particular pair of choice, or 2 pairs, but primarily you want to pick one you're going to be a specialist in. Go back and add all your details, okay? And what you want to do is you want to basically try to explain, with the benefit of hindsight, what took place with ICT concepts. If you do this, again, every single day, Monday through Friday, for 3 months, for one particular session time of day, in this case it's New York, if you do this, again, you will build a far more vast understanding about the characteristics about that time of day than doing anything else. It's not risking any money. It's not building an excitement or enthusiasm about making money, and it doesn't build fear about losing it. Okay? What you're doing is you're teaching yourself in an element, in an environment where you're not focusing on the money. You're focusing on the process. This is the process. I get a lot of questions, even by people that are in my mentorship. It's month 4, okay, or they're in month 7, and they're saying, I don't really know what I'm supposed to be doing right now. Sure you do. I've given you lots of exercises and things to focusing on, but they want to go into the markets and start trading right away, okay, and they have not submitted to the process. The process is you learn 12 months of core content. Then you go into a demo account for 6 months minimum, applying things like I'm showing you here. Going in, taking notes on charts, and building an experience library in your mind. I can't transpose my experience into anyone. I would love to be able to do that, but I can't. So the way you get that experience and the way you submit to the process and to time, this is what you do. You draw the notations on your chart, and you go through the process every single day, whether you've taken a trade or, say we go fast forward into time. Say you've been active in the marketplace and you've been using the concepts and you're making money, but you take a losing trade. Now, obviously you want to log what you did wrong, and don't beat yourself up about what you've done. Don't use emotional descriptors or adjectives in your commentary. You don't want to beat yourself up, and you want to focus on the things you did well and use descriptors and adjectives that are positive around that. That way your subconscious doesn't link these experiences to negative, and then they become a barrier to your trading, because your subconscious will remind you that the last time you took a trade it was painful, and you'll be wrestling internally about it. You won't realize you're doing it, but it's very powerful. Our mind is very, very powerful. So if we have these examples of no emotion in our study journal, it kind of like fills in that void that would have been painful because we've taken a loss maybe. We go back in and draw out what took place, and then now you filled in that gap with a positive element, and it masks that negative element that you took a loss. You don't want to focus on the loss. You don't want to focus on the monetary pain. Okay, you want to figure out what you did wrong and what took place in the marketplace, and you learn from that. All of my best lessons come by way of losing. Okay, and I go back in at the end of the day. I look at what I've seen in the marketplace, and I map it out like I show here. This is my actual chart again today for Eurodollar for the New York session. With this information here, now I didn't, obviously you've seen what I did, today. I was long on Eurodollar, but this is what was a result later on in the day the market went to 117.21, made a New York reversal, and then traded lower into the day. It didn't reverse entirely on the day from the high and make a lower low or trade below the open, but it did have a reversal that offered up a pretty good opportunity. You can see the intraday high here initially that set up our New York session buy. It ran the buy stops here and caused the turtle soup sell. The opportunity was between selling it here above the old high and reaching for the sell stops below here as it's seen trading below it there. Okay, so the opportunity was in between here for a New York session market reversal profile. Now, you're going to find many times that the New York session, by having this done every single day, predominantly you're going to find that the New York session is a continuation of the London session. Now, there's going to be factors that you'll learn by doing this when the session will be a continuation or when it will be a reversal. Now, I'm not teaching you that here because that's mentorship stuff. But I promise you, if you do enough of this, you'll find one or two specific criteria that will allow you to anticipate when a market reversal profile should come. Nothing's perfect. Even in the mentorship, there's nothing perfect. But it's more insight and more experience by doing this. If you don't do it, you're cheating yourself and you're robbing yourself of valuable experience that you can't beat it. I mean, you can sit down if you have a day off of work and you can go back literally over a couple weeks and do this, okay, and build in a great deal of history in your study journal. But in the beginning, you don't want to do that. You know, just start fresh with today or yesterday and build your study journal up and you'll be on your way. For those that can't do the New York Open or London Open or Asia, an opportunity can be seen by using the London close. Now, London close, again, is another time of day rather. It's similar to that of the Asian session. It's very low in terms of volatility. It does have some quirky characteristics to it, but for the most part, it usually has the capping effect of the daily range. Moving from a naked chart to more notations, this is how I internalize what took place for London close. You can see here the rectangle is highlighting the London close kill zone as I define it. Market trades up into a bearish order block, seen here, trades up to it here, and then attacks the sell stops below here and reaches back down into the ICT bullish breaker here. Trades down exactly to the very low to the pip. Okay, and for those students of support and resistance, if you like that, it trades back down to the old high here. But specifically, how we pick real support and resistance is based on institutional order flow and reading price action. And the best way of doing that is studying my ICT breaker pattern. Beautiful reaction off of that once it trades down to the lowest end of the breaker and pulls off that low and starts going to consolidation. Now, again, because this is a type of pattern in the day that's very low volatility generally, the characteristic is going to require your adherence to expecting or look for very low end pip objectives, not like that you would see in the London session or New York session. Which brings us to, if you're going to be focusing on the London session, you can anticipate a realistic 20 to 30 pips on the London session. Many times you can get more than that, but I build in this expectation as a developing trader. So that way, if you are actively demo trading it, this is what you should be aiming for. This is your first profit objective. If you hold on for the rest of the day, obviously you can do that. But in London, you're going to be looking to take profits at 20 or 30 pips. Scale your risk as low as you can, but still keep the trade open. You don't want to choke or strangle the trade, but you want to pay yourself when you can get it 20 or 30 pips in London. Okay, because you very well could read London wrong. If you're trading the New York session, realistically, 20 pips for that time of day. London close, 10 to 15 pips. Now, I know some of you are thinking, 10 pips, that's not even worth it. Well, what if you did 10 pips every single day? That's 50 pips a week. I'm looking for 50 to 75 pips a week. I'm telling you, if you understand this factor of trading with using a 50 pip objective for the week, you have no problem finding those 50 pips. If you are flexible and you are eventually trading for a living, you can do a session in the London session. If you miss it or if you get it wrong, you can hopefully recoup it in the New York session and go flat for the day. Or if you made your money back and you see a very strong setup in the London close, you can get your 10 pips for the day or maybe 15 pips. And if you're doing that, it leaves only a balance of 35 pips. If you got 15 for London close, 50 minus 15, you got 35 pips the rest of the week to make, and you've made your net 50 pips. Eventually, when you're trading, say, $100 per point or pip, that's a good week. 50 pips is a very handsome week. I don't know where you're from, but that's a good living. And finally, Asia, another time of day where 10 to 15 pips is realistic in terms of a pip haul or objective. If you are going to be trading Asia, I have to say this. You will find many times it's not going to give you a setup that is as consistent as the New York and London. Also, in your notes you should have, typically Asia or London close gives the better setup. So in other words, if Asia is really, really quiet and it doesn't give you a setup, means generally that London close that same day will give it to you. In contrast, if Asia gives you a very nice move, that typically means that London close will be quiet later on in the day. Okay, so what I want you to take away from this video is a way of balancing your time, targeting specific times of the day for study, budgeting and being a good steward with your time, and also balancing your family life and your sleep time and your work time. But you only need to focus on one of these a day, not every single one of them. Don't sneak one while you're working, okay, or while you're at dinner with your family looking at your smartphone. Don't do that, because number one, it's not fair to them. It's not fair to you because you're distracted, and you shouldn't be doing two things at one time. You can't keep your money in the forefront of your mind and still be respecting and spending quality time with your family. It can't happen. So you're going to have to pick what time of day you're doing what, and then stick to that. And if you do that, I promise you, it won't be perfect. I promise you, you will still lose money. I promise you that you still will probably get in arguments with your spouse, and your kids will be disappointed because you'll still do something when they would rather be doing something else with you at that time. But if you show them your results over time, they will be more likely to see things like you're hopefully wanting them to, and allowing you to do what you're trying to do and you're passionate about doing right now, which is speculation for a living. And if you do this type of skill set and practice and exercise and being disciplined about budgeting your time and managing your time efficiently, you'll be well on your way to reaching that objective. And until next time, I wish you good luck and good trading.